Come, yet again come. We wanderers, worshippers, lovers of leaving. But what is it exactly that we are so often apt to leave? Often it is the present moment itself, our felt awareness of our body's experience of life. It is our senses of which we so often take our leave. What if we welcomed ourselves back into our bodies, into the shape and sense of life, not only with self-acceptance, but with a radical embracing love of our actual physical bodies in this actual time, love of exactly who we are, with no need to improve, correct, or fix anything. What if that radical welcoming love were to extend outward to all people and all beings? Come, as we continue to consider our bodies anew, welcoming and appreciating them today, and wondering why and how we become disconnected from them. Even when our bodies may be tired, aching, and in need of healing, may they be no caravan of despair. Right now, in this time of lockdown, we may feel disconnected from others, but here we are, here with ourselves. As Jon Kabat-Zinn and others have famously said, wherever you go, there you are. And wherever we stay put, here we are too. So this is an ideal time for us to reconnect within, to seek healing from the disconnection between our bodies and ourselves. As I looked ahead to this sermon a few weeks ago, I was very grateful to be pointed toward a book and an online community called The Body is Not an Apology: The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonia Renee Taylor. She's a widely respected author, speaker, poet, and activist. She promotes radical self-love and body empowerment as the foundational tool for social justice and global transformation. I'd like to thank José Thibault and Tanya Cothran for letting me know about her work. I'll draw on it quite a bit this morning, while also recognizing that we can only scratch the surface in this very short time. Her book begins with the premise that every person has within us a natural intelligence that guides us to become fully ourselves in our own uniqueness, our own divine uniqueness. Quoting spiritual teacher Marianne Williamson, Sonia Renee Taylor writes, "An acorn does not have to say, 'I intend to become an oak tree.' Natural intelligence intends that every living thing become the highest form of itself and designs us accordingly." Taylor goes on, "Every day we wake to a planet full of social, political, and economic obstructions that siphon our energy and diminish our sense of self. Consequently, tapping into this natural intelligence often feels nearly impossible. Humans," she says, "unfortunately make being human exceptionally hard for each other. Yet the work we do is not about acquiring some way of being that we currently lack. The work is to crumble the barriers of injustice and shame leveled against us, so that we might access what we have always been. Because we will, if unobstructed, inevitably grow into the purpose for which we were created, our own unique version of that oak tree." Many among you will realize that this deeply inclusive understanding is in keeping with Unitarian Universalism's first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, every body, equally worthy of love. Of course, in our world, we often don't live that way. Our culture compares and contrasts bodies, valuing some over others, allowing violence to be perpetuated against Black and Indigenous bodies, allowing basic human needs to be denied to bodies that are differently abled, allowing the rejection and abandonment of bodies that suffer from mental illness, and the list goes on. We often focus on these wider world concerns, as of course we must. What Sonya Renee Taylor does, very helpfully and with tremendous compassion, is connect the dots between wider world injustice and the negative messages about our own bodies that each of us may carry, no matter who we are. She writes, "Body terrorism is a hideous tower whose primary support beam is the belief that there is a hierarchy of bodies. We uphold the system by internalizing this hierarchy and using it to situate our own value and worth in the world. Knowing that we are all constantly manipulated by media messages that value some bodies over others, she urges us to do, quote, the scary work of tearing down those pillars of hierarchy inside ourselves. We must trust," she writes, "that what will be left standing is our own divine enoughness, absent of any need for comparison." Thinking back to the poem Angela read earlier by Reverend Sean Neil Barron, I remember the line, "Your body and all that is within it, both wanted and unwanted, has a place here." It causes me to wonder, why have some parts of our bodies, parts of ourselves, become unwanted? What are the ways that we've, likely unconsciously, internalized the hierarchy of bodies that Sonya Renee Taylor writes about? And how might we tear down this hierarchy to create a more just and loving world? You'll notice that by using words such as tear down, we're making a connection with the call to dismantle white supremacist culture. This dismantling, which is necessary to create a truly just and loving world, starts with each of us. It starts with understanding and recognizing some of the habits and patterns that may be so familiar we don't even realize that we have them. They may be part of the shell that's preventing us little acorns from truly flourishing and from doing our part for the healing of the planet. We can start to notice these not with a shaming or critical eye, but instead with a sense of peaceful curiosity, a non-judgmental interest in how we came to see ourselves and others. Sonya Renee Taylor talks about making peace in 3 ways: making peace with not understanding, making peace with difference, and making peace with your body. So as we're curious about that last one, we might ask ourselves, how are we carrying the body shame that is woven so deeply into our culture? How do we reject our bodies in both subtle and not so subtle ways? And in doing so, how do we buy in, both literally and figuratively, to the hierarchies that need to come down? Here are a few drawn from Taylor's work and from my own experience, and I hope you'll think of others in the days ahead. But again, the idea here is not to layer on any more shame, but instead to notice with kindness. First and foremost, we may compare ourselves to others, placing ourselves up or down on various ladders. Here, Taylor repeats the famous quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy." But comparison and competition they are so much a part of our culture, we may not even notice that we're doing that, or on some level, we may think we should. Some others. Ignoring or minimizing physical needs in the name of achievement, social acceptance, or success. Feeling embarrassed for any aspect of our appearance or any illness or ailment. feeling guilty when we make a mistake, forget something, or don't understand a certain subject. Feeling shame for our moods or emotions. Insisting on perfection in ourselves or others, and demanding consistency in everything we do. That is, not accepting differences within ourselves, and for that matter, not encouraging growth and change. Overvaluing constant productivity. Valuing youthful bodies over others. Feeling apologetic when we are tired. Buying things to feel more worthy or enough, often described as retail therapy. Seeing our social or living situation as less worthy than someone else's. It's worth pausing here to notice that during the pandemic, many of us have been looking at ourselves more than usual. It makes me wonder what it was like in the early 18th century when mirrors became widely available, considering how much time we're now spending on Zoom. Right now, we create a sense of distance from our bodies as we literally look at ourselves from a digital remove. We may notice ourselves having self-critical thoughts about our appearance or our homes as we watch ourselves at this time. Now, of course, this isn't to say that we shouldn't experience joy and pleasure in the clothes we wear, or in wearing makeup, or styling our hair, or decorating our homes, but it's just to notice that in subtle ways, and because we've been taught to do so through our culture, we often judge and evaluate our bodies and those of others. Using the tools of mindful self-awareness, we can simply notice when a judgmental or self-critical thought arises, so we can intentionally replace it with a kind and loving thought instead. Sonia Renee Taylor encourages us to make peace with our bodies by distinguishing and diminishing the outside voice of shame and judgment, and cultivating a practice of listening more deeply to our authentic selves, our radical self-love voice, our inside voice. Again, because we've been steeped in messages that actually counter the notion of universal love and inherent worth and dignity, we may not realize how often we judge and diminish and evaluate our other people as well as ourselves. Here's another small example. Recently, the director Michael Apted died at age 79. He made many films, but he is best known for the Up documentary series that followed a group of British school children beginning at age 7 and continuing until the last documentary when they were all about 63 years old. When I think about that series, which I loved, I realized that much of its entertainment value came from taking stock of how everyone was turning out, how they were physically aging, and what they had achieved. The hierarchy of bodies was built into the series, right from the beginning, as it began as an exploration of the British class system, and as the director unconsciously, but in an accurate reflection of the times, included very few women in the program. I found the Up series to be a deeply moving portrait of ordinary people growing up and growing older. Yet when I think about watching the films, I realize I couldn't do so without comparing the various people, one to the other, and each to their own younger selves, and then to me, especially because I am roughly in the same age group. When I started writing this sermon, I wondered at first if enough people here might be able to relate to the subject of body shame. So I asked my husband, was there ever a time in your life when you felt embarrassed about something about your body, or felt that your body was different or unworthy in some way? Without missing a beat, he answered, my childhood. And then he laughed and added, my teenagehood. And then he said I could share this with you. When we think about our bodies and all they've been through. We may recall many painful experiences of shame or rejection, having to do with our appearance, our sexuality, or our abilities. These experiences may be more widespread than we realize. And in addition, many people received early messages that their whole selves were unlovable or unacceptable if they showed weakness in any form or failed to live up to some standard. According to the recent biography by his niece, the 45th President of the United States was one such person. We can only imagine how deeply he must have internalized those messages for him to project them with such hostility on so many people. Finally, a note that if anything troubling is arising for you today as you reflect on your body's experience throughout your lifetime, please don't hesitate to reach out for support if you need it. In The Body is Not an Apology, Sonia Renee Taylor writes, "Radical self-love is not a destination you are trying to get to. It is who you already are, and it is already working tirelessly to guide your life. The question is, how can you listen to it more distinctly, more often?" She suggests that over time, as we become more mindfully aware of self-limiting thoughts, we will gradually let them go, replacing them instead with loving and kind messages toward ourselves, which strengthen and empower us to do the work of love and justice that we are uniquely called to do. In this steady transformation, we might find ourselves practicing self-care in new and enjoyable ways, honoring our unique talents and gifts and sharing them more freely and confidently, saying no with clarity and confidence when a particular choice is not right for our body, and opening our hearts in generosity and compassion when we recognize that other bodies are in need.